Sometime that afternoon, roughly around 5 o'clock, Deanie decided to leave the gymnasium. She got up from her seat and headed towards the cafeteria. At some point, she turned around and waved at a friend of the family and said, "I'll be right back." This person's name was Adrian Herbert, and Adrian said that she just assumed that Deanie was going to the bathroom. But after 30 minutes go by and Deanie had not returned, people started to get concerned. So they started checking with some people that had been in that bathroom area, but none of them had seen 14-year-old Deanie. So they start searching the cafeteria, the gym, they go outside and they look for Deanie, but no one knew where she was. No one had seen her. And now, 45 years later, we still don't know where 14-year-old Deanie Peters went. A witness who spoke to the police was the last known person to see Deanie that afternoon. When Kent County Detective Ken Kleinexel was the first detective to arrive on scene, he said that at the time, Deanie was last seen by the back door of the school, walking side by side with someone, a friend, a girlfriend, a young lady, anywhere from 15 to 18 years old. And the two were just talking. They weren't arguing, or they didn't appear to be fighting. Now, Deanie was described as a bit of a rebel. Sometimes she would leave her house and go stay with friends without her parents' permission. She smoked cigarettes at 14, and some people thought perhaps she'd gone outside to smoke. However, no one had seen her out there. 2 days prior to Deanie going missing, she had gotten into a fight with 2 or 3 other girls at the school, and they were fighting over a boy that Deanie had been dating at the time named Kyle, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. The two or three, because, accounts are a little strange, girls made threats, and they told Deanie to stay away from Kyle. And one of these girls was Kyle's sister. Now, detectives would later say that this fight was big enough that school officials had documented it. One of Deanie's best friends actually witnessed this fight, and she said that she told detectives about it right away. But the problem was, for some reason, the original lead detective would later on say that he did not find out about this fight until several years after Deanie had vanished, and he blamed that on a lack of communication. But whatever. The ball really got dropped in this case, I think. Deanie's father, Dwayne Powell, lived in California at the time, which in 1981 and even now is a long way from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And some of Deanie's friends said that she had talked to him about the possibility just wish I could see you. I still haven't gotten your present, but maybe by the time you get this letter, I'll get it. Oh, Daddy, you're going to be so proud of me when I tell you how I'm doing in school. I got 2 B's and an A+ on my math test, and then I got 2 B's and 1 A- on my science test. I have a big picture of me for you this year. I hope you like it. Well, Dad, how was your New Year? How was your Christmas? Mine was okay, I guess, but it brought back lots of memories of you and my brothers and sisters, and she drew like a crying face. Well, almost the whole school knows about you and how great you are. My boyfriend wants to meet you. His name is Larry, but everyone calls him Guy. Well, Daddy, let's start keeping in touch better. I miss you so much. I just wish I could see you. Love, your daughter, Deanie. P.S. Take care of yourself. Another crying face. Miss you. End quote. Now, from the letter, we can deduce that she was doing really well in school, but she missed her dad. And she had a boyfriend at the time named Larry, but everyone called him Guy. Now, we'll talk about that because I know I said his name was Kyle. Just stick with me. There's lots of people in this case. She wished that she could see her father, of course, but she made no mention of actually running away to do so. As we know, missing persons investigations usually get off to a bad start because police spend a good chunk of their time just thinking that these people ran away. And that theory did clearly take up some detrimental time in this investigation. It didn't take long, though, for the police to actually start searching for Deanie, and they quickly focused in on a suspect. A man named Arthur Diaz was a 40-year-old janitor at the school the night that Deanie vanished. Kids at the school called him Mr. Art, and he said he was working cleaning the office at the school that afternoon around 5. He said that he had never seen Deanie that day, but he did know who she was, calling her a sharp kid, a good-looking gal. Okay, you're 40, she's 14, don't say that. She was a happy-go-lucky kid. Deanie's mom said that Mr. Art had helped search for her daughter right after she went missing. At the time, there was a gas-fired incinerator at the school that was used to burn up like school papers and food scraps, and police thought that maybe Mr. Art had burned Deanie's body in this incinerator. So they went to the school and they checked it. They didn't find any evidence of it being used to attempt to do something like that, and they actually found out that this incinerator was not hot enough to burn up school books, let alone like cremating a person. Around a week after she disappeared, Deanie's mom and stepdad also showed up at the school to talk to Mr. Art, and he told them, seriously, just ignore my stomach, it's disrespectful. He told them that he was sorry about Deanie, and he also told them that he had some information that might be important. He said that he had heard banging on one of the school's locked doors during that wrestling event the night that she went missing. And he said that there had been 3 high school boys standing at that door, and one of them had on a green and white Forest Hills Central jacket. Now, Mr. Art said he didn't recognize any of these boys, and he didn't let them into the school, and that he had already told detectives everything that he had seen. He said that the police never asked him for like a better description of these boys, and they never had him go through a photo lineup. Around a month after Deanie went missing, police showed up at the school and arrested Mr. Art. He spent a night in jail, and he had a cellmate. Now, this cellmate was a plant put there by the police department, and it was a man that owed detectives a favor. Now, Mr. Art said that he was pretty sure that the guy was a undercover cop, and he didn't really say much to him. He said he didn't have anything to confess anyway because he was innocent. lost control of his car and accidentally ran her over, killing her. Then he grabbed her and perhaps chucked her in some bushes. And the story goes that he returned later and took her away to hide her body somewhere. Now, this Bruce guy is featured a lot in this story. He admitted that he'd had a dream about Deanie, and he also admitted that he told multiple people about this dream. He said, "When I was a kid, I used to have this mental telepathy thing where I could, tell things." And he kind of said that he was kind of like one of those birds that predicted when people would die, because the bird would fly in the house and whoever's chair it landed on. I don't know. It was kind of weird. So at some point, Bruce left Michigan and opened up an auto repair shop in Somerset, Kentucky. His first wife, a woman named Beth Harmon, who has since passed away, said that he was abusive and violent towards her. She said that Bruce drank heavily, and at times so much so that he would black out and not remember anything. He would get up the next day and get moving and say, "I did what?" And she said that she knew he was a big drinker when she got with him, but there were some pretty scary times when they had had their scuffles. And then he seemed troubled many times through the years, but she couldn't explain why he was having nightmares. She also said that he shoved her out of a moving car at one point and she got a broken ankle because of it. Now, Bruce didn't have any criminal record in Kentucky or Michigan, but Beth did file for a domestic violence protection order in 1994, and she wrote that he would do anything to keep her, such as physically harming her or himself, and that he looked for her when she was away from the house and said that he would run her off the road. As you can imagine, Bruce and Beth divorced in 1998 after being married for 15 years, and Beth was never sure whether or not he was involved in Deanie's disappearance. She said, "I don't know why, but I've always had the idea that if he was involved, it was probably an accident, that he was probably drunk and driving, and maybe he and the others just got scared and did the wrong thing." Bruce's cousin Kirby said most of the time he was a teddy bear. Yes, he got drunk and he was a mean drunk, but she added, "Bruce didn't do this, so we need to get his name out of everyone's mouth." Retired Michigan State Police Detective Sergeant Sally Wolter said in 2021 that they could never eliminate Bruce Bunch, and she believed that they had already uncovered some proof that Bruce was involved, and then their focus went on to other people. A police source said that one of the girls in the fight with Deanie the couple days before she disappeared was Bruce's ex-girlfriend. Now, at the time of Deanie's disappearance, Bruce was 17, and he was living with his family in a double-wide trailer somewhere on Grand River Drive. He wasn't a good student, but he was good with his hands, and he enjoyed fixing cars. A woman who was interviewed at some point in the 1990s about this case said that she was enjoying a day of canoeing and drinking on the Flat River in 1989, when a man in her canoe told her that he, along with two other people, had hit a girl by the name of Deanie with a car in a school parking lot. He told this woman that they got scared and put the body in his trunk. Now, Bruce was not one of the people that this man said was part of this group of three. One man who was identified as part of this group was a man by the name of Joseph Falstrom. Now, Joseph was interviewed by the police in the early 1990s, and he said that the police told him, "We heard that you and your brother ran her down at a party." The woman on the canoe trip said that as they were coming up to the former location of the young Marines camp on their canoes, Joseph said at that point, according to this woman, supposedly he pointed up there and said, "That's where we buried Deanie Peters." Now, when he talked to police, he said, "Well, that's an absolute Joseph denies any involvement and tells the police that he actually heard a similar story from a man named, guess who? Bruce Bunch. But his story didn't involve Joseph at all. Joseph said that he had heard Bruce talking about Deanie during a kegger that they'd both been at. He said this man was throwing this huge fit, like crying and blubbering and saying, I killed her, I killed Deanie Peters, and he kept just carrying on about it. And Joseph bumped one of his friends and was like, yo, what's this guy talking about? And the friend was like, oh, that's just Bruce. When he gets drunk, he's just a poor me baby. Joseph said Bruce told him that Deanie's body was buried on the property where an old one-room standard school is located. He said he was haunted by the chains clanging on the maypole behind the schoolhouse where he claims to have buried her. Now, former police chief Barry Emmons said that he came out to the old schoolhouse and looked around shortly after Deanie had vanished, but he didn't notice anything strange. So after the 1990s, this case went cold for a really long time. Well, really until March of 2008, when Kent County Metro Cold Case Team was created. It was made up of detectives from Michigan State Police, Grand Rapids, and Kent County. A $300,000 grant had been given to start this team. Detectives from this newly created team went to visit Mr. Art, the janitor, and they asked him to take a polygraph, but he refused. He was eventually ruled out as a suspect in this case, but it really didn't give him a lot of comfort to know that. He said, there's going to be doubt in somebody's mind somewhere, and it leaves this shadow over your head. It's not a halo up there, it's a dark cloud. Mr. Art died on September 13th of 2013. In 2014, police made their way to Heather Road, following up on the lead from the lady in the canoe. They go to the site of the former Young Marines camp about 30 miles from Forest Hills Central Middle School and about 7 minutes from the abandoned schoolhouse. Police bring cadaver dogs and they search the property, and they actually do some digging, and they even returned to this property 3 years later and searched some more. And it's not been released what the police found, if anything, during these 2 searches. So back to March of 2008, cold case investigators reopen Deanie's case, and one of the first people that they look at after reopening it is Joseph Wallstrom. And he agrees to take a polygraph, and he says, at the end of the polygraph, the operator says, Mr. Wallstrom, I'm going to pass this along to the detectives. You're clearly not a part of this. And Joseph was like, yeah, I've been saying that for the past 20-something years. And he was also able to come up with an ironclad alibi. He was part of the United States Army training at Fort Benning, Georgia, at the time that Deanie went missing. However, why did it take him so long to locate those papers? I don't really know. So, a little more than a year later, on May 12th, 2009, police and other people show up at the schoolhouse and begin digging. They used a mechanical excavator to skim up the topsoil, and they had gotten in touch with the Michigan State University Department of Anthropology to help take part in this dig. And he said that once the soil was skimmed, the anthropologists would then examine the soil. And he said that even decades later, they could tell if there had been a change in the soil composition, to the fact that they could point out if the soil had been disturbed or not been disturbed. But again, we don't know what they found. Detective Klein Hexel retired in 1994, and after that he started working as a private detective and continued to further investigate Deanie Peters' case. He said that in 2010 he had found a new witness. This was a woman who lived in Lowell at the time, and she had already talked to the cold case team. Bruce Bunch. This woman said he came that night and he was just upset and goofy, and he said, "Today I was at a school and I hit a girl with my car. I either backed over her or ran over her and I killed her. And so he loaded her up in the car, and he said we, and the lady didn't know who we was, took her out and took her down Cascade to Snow Avenue. And at the end of Snow comes the freeway. They took her out and they covered her with a big pile of rocks." Detective Kleinexel said that if this story was true, that Bruce probably moved the body after the spring thaw to another location. Now, Bruce has a daughter whose name is Janelle, and she stated that her father did have some kind of connection with Deanie. She said, "Yeah, he met her. That's what he told me, that he met her." She also admitted that her dad did drink a lot, and he wasn't super nice when he was drinking. She said that her father never even spoke about Deanie until Detective Kleinexel called the house looking for him. And she said at that point her dad had told her that there was some girl that was missing, and her body was missing, and they thought he could have had something to do with it because he knew her or met her. And she asked her dad straight out, "Did you do anything?" And he said that, or she said that he forcefully denied having anything to do with Deanie's disappearance. Bruce Bunch died of a heart attack on February 1st of 2008 at 44 years old. On February 5th, 27 years to the day from the day that Deanie went missing, he was buried in Somerset, Kentucky. Sometime around 2010, a reporter was able to track down one of the girls who had been part of the argument a couple days before Deanie disappeared. Her name at the time was Sue Atchison, and she married a man named Rob Harmon and took his last name. She told the TV station about the fight and said, "It wasn't like we pounded on her. We probably threatened her." She had been given a lie detector test by police shortly before talking to the reporter, which she failed. And when the reporter asked if she passed it, she said, "Heck no." But then she added, "But if I knew something, why wouldn't I tell? This was 30 years ago. Why didn't they talk to us 30 years ago? You know, like when we remembered the details." Of course, you can also kind of wonder, though, why she didn't come forward and talk to police when Deanie disappeared. Sue's husband, Rob, also happens to be the nephew of former detective Jack Christensen, one of the lead investigators on Deanie's case in the last several years. And it is reported that while Deanie's mother had given police her diary, it went missing. So tell me, how did that happen? Was one of the detectives, like, looking out for somebody, or was it an actual accident? At some point in early 2021, around the 40-year anniversary of Deanie's disappearance, the police announced that Bruce Bunch was likely the person responsible for Deanie's death. However, the story kind of took a turn when a couple months later, somebody else was arrested. A man named James Frisbee, who is the owner of Frisbee Sign Company. Now, according to the probable cause affidavit, Deputy Dan Bishop showed up at the sign company on July 2nd of 2021 to arrest James, who was 61 at the time. When Bishop told James to turn around, he replied, "Nope." Bishop asked him again, and James said, "Nope." He said then, "I'm not going to court." And he attempted to walk past the officer into the garage. Bishop stopped James and told him twice more that he was under arrest. James told the cop that he needed to get his hands off of him and continued to pull away, and stated multiple times that he needed to go to the bathroom. And he then called for his son, Harrison. Eventually, Officer Bishop was able to get Mr. Frisbee into cuffs, and he was charged with one count of assaulting, resisting, and obstructing a police officer. witnesses by instructing them not to bring their phone to scheduled investigative subpoenas. And 2 of those witnesses did not bring their cellular devices because of those instructions. Now, during a preliminary hearing in Grand Rapids, prosecutors played a tape of a 2008 interview with James. During this interview, James said there were 2 men that he knew that may have killed Deanie, and one was a man by the name of Kyle Fate. Kyle had worked at James's sign shop for a period of time, and the 2 of them were friends. Witnesses testified at the hearing that Kyle was Deanie's boyfriend around the time that she went missing. So I don't know if Larry, the one they called Guy, was her boyfriend when she wrote the letter, but then by February when she went missing, it was then this Kyle guy. I mean, I changed boyfriends like I changed my clothes when I was 14, so there's a good chance of that. Now, Kyle himself passed away in 2008. A woman named Suzanne, who dated Kyle from 1999 to 2004, testified that James had called her on the day that Kyle had passed away and told her. He said, yeah, I think he lived his life with drugs and alcohol because he felt guilty about killing Deanie Peters. A man named Todd Parks was friends with both James and Kyle. He testified that James was talking to him in 2009 and told him that he had a theory that Kyle was the one who had hurt Deanie. Todd also testified James had told him he thought Deanie was buried somewhere near 68th Street and McCord's Avenue, near Alto. A woman named Karen Knollblock was married to Kyle for a period of time, and she testified that she was looking through some of his old pictures at some point before they got married, and she found a large photo of Deanie. She flipped the photo over and saw a very detailed love letter written to Kyle and signed by Deanie. Another witness, Robert Petrosky, testified that he used to work for James Frisbee, and he said that while he was at work one day, he overheard James talking to Kyle and explaining, I speak English, to him how he was able to beat a lie detector test. Now, Mr. Frisbee was very busy pointing fingers. He also told police that in 2008, a man named Steve Osborne, who he'd been friends with since he was a child, and he said Steve could have killed her and strangled her. He said that he'd heard rumors of Steve doing this to other women, along with other terrible things. Why did you wait so long, Mr. Frisbee? Just saying. Steve had talked to TV reporters in 2021 and said that he'd never done any such things to women, so I don't know. Detectives later said that James lied to them and that he never made any, and then said he never made any of these accusations, and that's why he's charged with perjury in this case. In September of 2021, Judge David J. Butler made a ruling that there was enough evidence presented to move forward with James Frisbee's case along to a circuit court where he would then be presented to a jury, and he could actually face life in prison if found guilty. However, I looked this morning and his case is still hung up in the court system, and he is out on bond. He has not been tried or convicted of anything related to this case. So, that is all the details I have about the case of the missing 14-year-old Deanie Peters from 1981. If you have any information, or anyone you know has any information regarding this case, please call the Kent County Sheriff's Office at 616-632-6100. I will also put that number in the description box down below. So let me tell you what I think happened. And it really could go a number of different ways in this case. I think that maybe the Bruce punch theory was moderately correct. I think it's strange that several people said that they saw him like extremely upset and saying that he had killed her. I fully believe that he would I put it past him that there were people in the car and these two people helped him get her in the trunk and they hid her somewhere? Absolutely not, and I find that entirely plausible. I do find it kind of weird that no one has slipped up and said anything in the 45 years since this case has happened. But I do hope that this new cold case investigative team will continue to find leads and maybe finally solve this case for Deanie's family. I cannot imagine your child going missing. You just thought she was going to the restroom, and school is supposed to be one of those safe places, you know what I mean? And I understand that she was 14 and she wanted to be an adult or whatever, but I don't think that she would have, my phone is still going off, run off with anyone, either to go to her dad's or just to run away like most people think, without her money, without her wallet, or any of her clothing. I mean, obviously it's 1981, so she doesn't have a cell phone, but I find that really, really strange. And I hate that that is always, I know I've said this before and I'm sure I'll say it again, always the police's first route. I understand not wanting to, waste resources on searching for someone who's not necessarily missing. In the news just this week was a woman that had been found after being missing for 24 years, and they were talking about it on the local radio show, and they were like, I think that she should, because this woman, apparently, I don't even know who she is, maybe I'll look it up and tell you guys about it, but she just ran away from her life, from her kids, and they were saying that they thought that she should have to pay, restitution to the police for all the money spent searching for her, and that they believe that she should have to pay her children child support because they were minors when she left. And I kind of agree. It's kind of strange though, because how did she get a job? How did she make money? Because, your identification gets flagged when you're missing. Now, in Deanie's case, she wasn't old enough maybe to, I don't think I knew my social security number or anything when I was that young, but I don't know, I found it kind of weird that that's what I was thinking. How did she get a job? Things like that. So anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm gonna put a poll up on my channel. It might be up already by the time you see this. I found 3 or 4 books at the thrift store, and I thought that they would be interesting to start reading on the channel. So I'm gonna put the titles up and kind of vote for what you guys want to see as extra content here on the channel. So if you're still listening, watch out for that, and if you've not voted, please vote and leave a comment and or subscribe if you're not already. I love you guys so much, and I will see you very soon.